A belated Happy New Year from us to you. The ReLoaded podcast is on the air. Dave Bradshaw here with James R. Kennedy. As always, we've got a lot to talk about from this past week of Loaded, the first Loaded of 2019, as we look ahead, of course, to a very big main event this coming Sunday as well. How are you? Happy New Year.
As much as it pains me to say, Happy New Year to you as well, Dave.
You see, we started the year on a cordial note.
Well, I did promise you that I was going to try and be nicer. In fact, no, I didn't promise that. What am I saying? I said I was going to be more horrible. But on this one occasion, I'll make an exception.
Now, the more eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that we actually didn't have a podcast episode last week. We apologise for that. Well, actually, I shouldn't have to apologise for that. I think you should probably explain why we weren't on air last week.
Really? You're going to put me on the spot?
Well, it wasn't me, was it? It was all you, so you may as well explain it.
Well, basically what happened, ladies, gentlemen and freaks of the Defiant wrestling audience, and, you know, in terms of proportions, it weighs heavily towards freaks, but anyway, I always throw this big, massive, huge, special New Year bash, and there are literally millions of people that want to come, but unfortunately one man's house can only be so big. So, you know, a couple of thousand mill around on the lawn outside, a couple of hundred are lucky enough to get inside at one time.
Should we cut to the bit where you tell us the actual true bit rather than just making a load of stuff up?
Well, no one came. No one came,
yeah.
And then not only that, I fell asleep on my couch, my very expensive couch, and some people rang the doorbell. So like an excitable puppy, I rose to my feet and thought, yes, my thousands upon thousands of friends and fans are here, but it wasn't. It was three little boys dressed in God only knows what they were wearing, to be honest with you. I think it was a hangover from Halloween. They proceeded to mug me, Dave, and steal all my furniture and all my possessions.
Yeah, first of all, I do have some sympathy, although it's not a very expensive couch, is it? It's a futon.
Oh, come on.
One thing. A couch and a futon aren't the same thing. So anyway, what you're saying is you spent the past week trying to track down all your possessions because you were robbed by three adolescents.
Oh, no, I didn't bother I mean, that's a waste of time. Those people, children run fast these days, Dave. They get the hell out of Dodge very quickly, and I should know because I was armed with a baseball bat and tried to swat a few, but to no avail. They were just too quick for me. So there's no point in trying to track them down. I just went out and bought new furniture, and that's why we didn't have a podcast, because I was busy shopping.
All right, it sounds slightly implausible, but we'll buy your story, I suppose. Anyway, we'll move on. And we'll get on to some important stuff because we do have an enormous amount to talk about. Because we didn't have a podcast last week, we haven't actually spoken to you guys on here since the shocking end to the last Loaded of 2018 when Martin Kirby somehow defeated, I use the word defeated loosely, defeated Walter to become the internet champion. Of all the farcical moments that you could imagine in the wrestling world, this one ranks pretty highly. He comes out wrapped in bubble wrap, for goodness sake, and wins with a low blow.
It was great, wasn't it? No. And I know that for example, that you were absolutely seething about it, and frankly, that made me happier. What a genius move from Martin Kirby. Now, I have sat there on many occasions at ringside with you and said, Walter cannot be beaten. There is not one man on this earth who can beat this big Austrian. They're certainly not going to take that title away from him. Martin Kirby, he did both. Not only did he defeat Walter, he took the Defiant Internet title. The fact he was wrapped up in bubble wrap, well, that's just a caveat, if you like. The history books will ignore that, Dave, and they will say that Martin Kirby is the champ.
Yeah, and Kirby has been strutting around, not just in person, but metaphorically strutting around on social media as well, describing himself as a genius for the way he defeated Walter. He's compared himself to the likes of Charles Darwin and Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, all those types of historic figures, and has said, in fact, he's better than those geniuses because they've never won a wrestling title.
Well, exactly.
I mean, come on. I mean, we're not actually going to discuss this man seriously. He's just it's an embarrassment, isn't it? It's what it is. It's an embarrassment to Defiant Wrestling management, to the image of the company, to have just I can't even think of a word to describe it. Imbecile is the one that comes to mind.
Now,
honestly.
listen, you might call Martin Kirby an imbecile or an embarrassment or anything of the sort, but he's nothing of the sort, because, to your point, can you imagine Albert Einstein in there with Walter? Can you imagine what would have happened to that man? He would have taken his brain, ripped it from his head, threw it into the front row, defended the Defiant Internet Championship, and moved on. But not against Martin Kirby. No, 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 no. Martin Kirby, as the best often do, had a plan B.
I find it kind of sticks in the throat a little bit that we're talking about Martin Kirby and spending all this time speaking about him while there's a separate controversy going on which we don't really have time to talk about today about Kanji, right? There's Kanji's the new women's champion here in Defiant, and there's a whole debate going on among some fans about whether she deserves to be the champion because she's so new here, and yet Kanji comes out first loaded of 2019, perfectly happy to defend her championship. She's trying to be a fighting champion week in and week out. Credit to her, absolute credit to her. She's answering her critics head on in a way that Martin Kirby just does not have the integrity to do. Let's talk about what happened at the conclusion of a very great match we had on Loaded this past Sunday. The return of BT Gunn, first of all. Great to see him back in a Defiant wrestling ring. And he got a hard-fought victory over Lucky Kid. But what happened afterwards was inexplicable, really. Lucky Kid was accepting the applause of the crowd for a hard-fought match up on the stage, just about to go back through the curtain, and then an absolute unprovoked assault, really, from behind from John Bad Bones Klinger. I've been thinking about this for a couple of days. I still have absolutely no idea what Klinger has against Lucky Kid.
Well, I can't answer that question either. To be honest, I was hoping that you might have some insight, because after all, I'm sure a lot of the Defiant Wrestling fans know this. They've seen it on Twitter, social media, the rest, that you actually have been doing some work in Germany, and I was hoping you might have some insight into the relationship between these men, if there even is one. The only thing I can think of is maybe John Klinger sees the potential that Lucky Kid has, and he just wants to shut him down. That's all I can think of. Either that, or the badness just wants to make a statement. But no one expected it. No one saw it coming, least of all Lucky Kid. So there's no history between these men, or you haven't witnessed anything?
I mean, they're both part of GWF, the German Wrestling Federation, where I work in Germany. They both competed at WXW and elsewhere. I mean, their paths have crossed many times, but there's nothing particularly at this specific moment. Someone like John Bad Bones Klinger in particular, who's been around the European wrestling scene for a very long time. A majority of the guys in the back who have been working for any amount of time have crossed John Klinger at some point, and so there was nothing to my mind to think at this particular moment he would choose Lucky Kid as someone he would take issue with. So no, I've no idea. I really have no clue what Klinger was thinking. He's a man with many nicknames, isn't he? We call him the Opportunist. We call him the Ringmaster after the tournament he won last summer. And we used to call him the German Psycho. We hadn't called him that for a little while, but there was a definite, the psycho element of his personality, I think, came back into play this past Sunday, because that's the only thing that can explain this apparently random attack.
And also, Dave, as well, we would be remiss if we didn't bring up the fact that was a huge win on his return to Defiant Wrestling, no less, for BT Gunn. I seriously doubt that he has anything to do with Klinger's attack. Maybe we'll find that out in due course, but again, I seriously doubt it. Klinger he's always been someone to act on his own accord. Okay, he used to be a mercenary at one point. God, I hope he hasn't returned to those days, because those were dangerous. But in terms of Lucky Kid and John Klinger, it's one of these interesting scenarios where we have more questions than answers, really. And going forward, we're going to find out why Klinger attacked, that's for sure, because he's never one to mince his words.
All right, well, let us know what you think, if you're listening to this, about what the possible motive might be for why John Bad Bones Klinger would have attacked Lucky Kid. Hopefully we will find out more this Sunday on Loaded. But in the meantime, feel free to tweet us. As always, our Twitter handle is @DefiantRes. That's @Defiant, WRES. Use the hashtag WeAreDefiant to join the conversation. and you can speculate, possibly as cluelessly as we have, about why it is that John Bad Bones Klinger has launched that attack on Lucky Kid. Now, so if it's been a little bit chaotic with Klinger and Lucky Kid, the chaos continues back in the locker room as well as up on the stage. Here's a serious situation that's going on. El Phantasmo has lost his glasses.
What is this all about? Just buy another bloody pair of glasses. I don't see what the big problem is here. Honestly.
Well, Phantasmo has taken this. It is a crime. Theft is a crime. And El Phantasmo has taken this to our general manager, the esteemed General Amin, who is going to launch a full investigation into where those glasses have gone. And I'm just wondering whether you have any information. You claim to be an investigative journalist. You claim to have your ear to the ground, contacts back in the locker room. Do you have any sense of a motive? Any sense of why those glasses might have gone missing?
Are you seriously asking? We go from John Bad Bones Klinger, a man who won the Ringmaster tournament and challenged for the Defiant World Heavyweight Championship, and then all of a sudden he attacks this young prospect Lucky Kid. We go from that to the mystery of El Phantasmo's LED glasses. The only thing I can think of, Dave, is that General Amin, you know, everyone likes to say he's going to rewrite the book on how to be a general manager in Defiant Wrestling. Well, I have a suggestion of my own, of a book that General Amin is writing. The Idiot's Guide to Running a Wrestling Company. Seriously, what is this guy playing at? I don't get... There are far more important things, i.e. championship matches, the future of young athletes like Gabriel Kidd, Lucky Kid, what's going on with all these big matches about to go down, which we'll get to. There are more important things going on in Defiant Wrestling than a pair of LED glasses. I don't get it.
Oh, first of all, the fact that you're downplaying the importance of the glasses, I think, makes you a suspect. But anyway, putting that aside, it seems to me that you're being extremely short-sighted about this. Because if you're Prince Amin, General Amin, our new manager, you want to stamp your authority on the locker room, right? And, you know, first it's a pair of glasses. Next week it's a car. Like, you know, at some point, someone is, you know, you've got to nip this in the bud. You can't allow lawlessness to go on in your locker room. It's the same thing as at work. If you're a manager at work, if, you know, an employee shows up 2 minutes late to start with, you allow it. Suddenly they're coming in an hour late every day. So from I get it. From Amin's point of view, he is trying to lay down the law, say, no, we're going to have order in my locker room, and it starts here.
Well, all I'm saying, though, is about a year or so ago, I left a packet of spicy knickknacks in the locker room in good faith, thinking no one would touch them, knowing they belonged to James R. Kennedy, and when I returned from my business, I would be able to eat my snack without any questions asked. And when I returned to that locker room, those crisps were gone, and no one lifted a finger for me. No one said, oh, James, we must hunt for your crisps. This is a travesty. This is lawlessness, as you want to put it. I mean, it's ridiculous. No one said anything for me, and now all of a sudden...
That was me. I ate those.
Why would you do that to man?
Because, well, they weren't labelled. They didn't have your name on. I thought they were just like free game, you know, fair game for anyone. So I just had them.
Well, now we know. And now I suppose you're going to tell me that you have nothing to do with El Phantasmo's LED glasses.
Well, no, because I know they're his. If I wouldn't steal, I just thought that I thought that was part of the snacks that was being provided. I thought it was catering.
For one, am shocked and stunned. I'm afraid you're going to have to take it from here, Dave. I need a glass of water or something, because those crisps meant a lot to me. You know, this is how ridiculous this is. It's a pair of glasses. Buy another bloody pair.
Well, beyond this specific case of these glasses, you're trying to say, I think a moment ago, you were trying to say that General Amin is already losing sight of what's important, that he's already losing his grip as general manager. And I don't think that's the case. And by the way, I say that because I know he's aware that it's a chaotic situation. We're building up to a big pay-per-view, Unstoppable, on February 9th. He knows that there's a lot of different tense situations going on in Defiant, and I speak to him pretty regularly, and he knows that. I'll tell you, actually, I can't preempt his announcement, but I will tell you that this Sunday on Loaded, General Amin is going to have a major announcement about how he plans to manage Defiant Wrestling going forward. And that will change, I think. I hope it will change your mind. Well, I don't really care whether it will change your mind, but it will change any doubters' minds about his management style.
God help us all. God help us all. Because if Prince Amin, if his track record as general manager of Defiant Wrestling thus far is anything to go by, then we're all in trouble.
Well, maybe, quite aside from that announcement, maybe we'll get him on here.
What?
Maybe it's sometime in the next few weeks. I will ask my friend General Amin, our general manager, to come on here, and you can ask him all these horrendous one-sided questions and try and undermine his authority like you've been doing today. You can do it to his face.
But I don't want to do that. What if he fires me?
Well, I mean, he's going to listen to this anyway, so you may as well have the courage of your convictions to do it in person.
Wait, whoa. You're telling me that our general manager listens to this very podcast?
Of course he does. It's the official podcast of Loaded.
I would just like to go on record as saying that this mystery, this hunt of a travesty of justice, quite frankly, for El Fantasmo's LED glasses is a bold pursuit from our general manager. If the editor, the director of this pod, could cut out everything I said previously, if you're listening, general manager, it was nothing bad. It was just, I've managed to succinctly sum it up better in this sentence. So yes, I would like to say that I think Prince Amin is doing an expert. Dave, I can't keep this up. He's doing a terrible job. He's doing a terrible job. It's a bloody pair of glasses. Do your job, Prince Amin, as general manager of Defiant Wrestling. Please, I implore you, and focus on the important things.
Well, watch this space, because I promise you, General Amin has a big announcement this week, and we will try and get him on the podcast in the weeks to come, so you can take it up with him personally. By the way, speaking of this coming week's Loaded, he's got a couple of new initiatives this week. So you talk about he's not doing anything, he's not doing his job as general manager. Two big things coming up this week. He's got the an open challenge that he is allowing the South Coast Connection SCC to start. It's going to be the first open challenge for SCC this Sunday on Loaded. We've talked about SCC a bit in the past few weeks. They are one of the teams I think are going to be breakout stars here in Defiant in 2019. I will go as far as saying they are my favourites to be the people who eventually, if they keep on going on the trajectory they're going, I think they will be possibly the favourites to unseat Aussie Open as tag team champions at some point in 2019. But anyway, they're going to have an open challenge to any tag team in the UK next week, or this coming Sunday, I should say, on Loaded. So that could be pretty big.
It will be, no doubt. Now, even I, Dave Bradshaw, I'm not going to sit here and criticise a general manager for giving young talent a chance. There's no way that's going to happen. Given my history and track record, it's been all about giving young talent a chance. So I'm not going to criticise General Amin for that one. However, for the SCC, this is a golden opportunity, because this is a chance to prove, or in a lot of people's minds, to be quite frank, this is a chance for them to step out of the shadow of the man responsible for bringing them to Defiant Wrestling, and that's the aerial assassin, Will Ospreay. So they've been in that shadow, and Will Ospreay casts quite a big shadow in pro wrestling these days. They want to break out of that, and what better way to do that than by racking up win after win in the Defiant Tag Team division. And I'm not so sure if they're at the stage where they could dethrone Aussie Open, but you never know. You have to start somewhere.
I'm not saying they are yet. I'm not trying to say that they're going to become the tag team champions tomorrow. I don't think they're there yet. Aussie Open have been so dominant as tag champs. All I'm saying is that down the road, the SCC, the way they are heading, they are improving. Every time we see them, they look more impressive. And I just think, we'll see what happens on Sunday when they have this open challenge. Obviously, a lot will depend on who the opponents are. But if they can keep winning, keep building that momentum, then they are headed in that direction, is what I'm saying.
Well, for Aussie Open as well, of course, Tag Team of the Year in Defiant Wrestling, as voted for by the Defiant Wrestling fans. So what you're saying is, perhaps, if South Coast Connection can use this platform given to them by the general manager, maybe there's nothing to say that they couldn't be next year's Tag Team of the Year.
Well, we will see. The other thing I heard you say just then about, you're not going to criticise a general manager for giving young talent a chance. Well, quite aside from this SCC Open Challenge, another thing that's coming up this Sunday, thanks to our new general manager, is the debut of the Defiant Breakout division, a chance for some new stars who are on their absolute first time in front of an audience in some cases to have their chance in the spotlight. And we're going to see 2 new talents yet to be announced this Sunday on Loaded. So that's going to be pretty cool as well.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, hey, the more the merrier. When it comes to young talent in pro wrestling, this is a very exciting time in the UK scene. It has been for arguably the past, it's been building steadily for a good 10 years or so, but it's reached a peak. The talent level is at an all-time high. It's a very exciting time to be a fan. It's an even more exciting time to be involved in the industry, and it's great to see all these young names come through. So again, I'm not going to criticise anyone for giving youth a chance.
Now, there is another thing we need to talk about this Sunday's Loaded, and we haven't talked about it till now because I wanted to save it as kind of the main event of this week's podcast, if you like. But we can't go any further without talking about it now. The main event of Loaded this Sunday will see the homecoming of Newcastle's own man that gravity forgot, PAC, against the product David Starr. It is an absolutely huge match to have this early in the year. I've got goosebumps just saying it there. What on earth do we expect when we see PAC in a Defiant wrestling ring this Sunday?
Well, as he always does, and he has done every single match of his career, whether it was in North America or Japan or the UK or anywhere before that, PAC will bring his A-game, and this is either a huge opportunity for the product David Starr or David Starr's worst nightmare. Because if you think about this, the Defiant World Heavyweight Champion Rampage is going to be sitting there with his feet up, and he's going to have a front row seat somewhere in the building, presumably, to watch this match. And he wants David Starr to prove to him that he's worthy of challenging for that gold. He wants to have the respect of David Starr and have Starr earn his respect. As for Starr, he says he doesn't want Rampage's respect. One thing he does have is PAC's attention, because this hometown boy is going to be determined not to lose. He's going to be right there in Newcastle, in amongst his people. And there's no way he wants to leave Loaded with a loss. This is probably, in fact not probably, it's inarguably one of, if not the biggest matches in Defiant Loaded history. No doubt about it. The bastard is coming, as PAC says, and David Starr right now is the only man who can stop him.
Well, the O2 Academy in Newcastle is absolutely sold out. It's going to be filled to the rafters on Sunday's episode of Loaded, and it's going to be so noisy. Like, I mean, it's going to be incredible. But that adds more pressure to Starr, right? If it wasn't enough that he's got this thing that, Rampage, the world champion, has said to him that, if you want a title shot, which Starr desperately wants, then you're going to have to, you're going to have to prove yourself. You're going to have to prove that you're worthy of a shot. Well, what better way than to put in a hell of a performance against PAC? But he's going to have to do that in a real Lion's Den environment, because he's going to be coming into a place where PAC is going to be wrestling in his hometown for the first time in like 2 years, I think it is, something like that. First time ever in a Defiant ring. The noise is going to be off the charts, and although there will be some David Starr supporters in there, it's going to be essentially a hostile environment, and yet he knows it's a pivotal moment for his pursuit of the world title. The pressure is huge on David Starr. It
really is, and to that point though, Defiant wrestling as a whole must feel like a hostile environment for David Starr. I'm going to pose this question to you, Dave. I mean, nothing has been explicitly said on this front, but one has to wonder what it's going to mean for David Starr's future, not only in terms of challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship, that's one thing, but also for the guy's own psyche if he loses to PAC here, because David Starr has pretty much been Defiant Wrestling's nearly man over the past year or so. You think of all the opportunities that he's came so close to just grabbing and leaving a winner, only to wind up being a loser. And I hate using that word when it comes to David Starr, because I think anyone can see when they watch him wrestle that he is anything but a loser. But unfortunately, someone has to get pinned, someone has to lose at the end of the day in a pro wrestling match, and David Starr, he just hasn't been on the winning end a lot. And
well, look, I mean, if you're David Starr, you've got to look at this with a cool head, right? Now, there is absolutely, it's true that his win-loss record in Defiant hasn't been as impressive as it has been elsewhere, but it has been very impressive elsewhere. He has won all sorts of championships across the UK, across Europe, in the US. Like, David Starr is one of the best independent wrestlers in the world, right? And he should know that. I mean, he will know that he has the talent. Obviously, he has the talent to be here and to excel in Defiant. I don't know why things haven't gone as well for him here as they have in other places so far, but he just needs to have that self-confidence and know that he belongs, right? And I think it's not just about whether he wins or loses on Sunday, actually. I think it's about whether he can put in a performance in those circumstances that show he is absolutely a top-tier talent. And that in itself, obviously, is a tall order, because that is a big ask when you look at a roster as talented as the Defiant wrestling roster, to be able to show that you belong in that upper echelons and that you belong in a world title match with Rampage as he wants, is a lot to ask. But he is someone who is up to that challenge, I think, and we'll see. We'll see on Sunday what he brings in a very, very difficult situation. It's going to be a absolutely emotionally charged night with the return of PAC, and it's quite unpredictable. I really don't know what to expect when you see those two in the ring. By the way, for the first time ever, they've never wrestled against each other, and for the first time, we will see it this Sunday.
Well, it's a huge get for Defiant Wrestling as well. You know, when you think about a match of that caliber, and there's just so much going on. There's just so much going on here in terms of, you know, Rampage. He wants Starr's respect. Rampage says, to hell with that, I'm going to beat the crap out of you and take your Defiant World Heavyweight Championship away from you. Starr has targeted, we imagine, Unstoppable in Manchester on February 9th, our next pay-per-view, as the date when he would do that. But first and foremost, he has to get through not just any wrestler, not just any hometown wrestler, but one of the best wrestlers on the planet today. And this is almost PAC +1 that's coming to Newcastle here, because again, he's going to be super fired up. There is no way he wants to lose on his return home. No chance. You know, that's just got to be said first and foremost. No chance PAC will accept defeat. And David Starr can't accept defeat. So you have the makings of an incendiary situation here. It's going to be one that is... This is thrown around a lot in pro wrestling, but I really believe this is one of those can't miss prospects.
All right, well, let us know what you think is going to happen in our main event this Sunday. PAC versus David Starr. Tweet us at Defiant Rest. Use the hashtag #WeAreDefiant. Who will win? What will happen in that main event Sunday night, 3 on YouTube? We're almost out of time, but since this is the first time we've been on air this year, and since we're talking about Rampage, I want to share with you what I think is my top prediction for for something that's going to happen in Defiant in 2019. You ready for this?
I
want to put this on the record. I've been thinking about this a lot this week, about who's going to succeed, who's going to have a big year, and we were just talking about him, Rampage. So I want this recorded now so that I can brag about it in December, right? I'm going to say that Rampage, throughout 2019, will hold on to the Defiant World title. I believe on New Year's Eve 2019, he will still be in this same title reign that he is now.
Wow. That's a bold... I mean, listen, it's not impossible, but it's still a bold one when you consider the injuries that Rampage has already... And not only that, the caliber of opponents and challengers he's had. So that's a bold prediction. I have to give it to you.
But we've made so many... We've underestimated him so many times. You know, he's come back. He's had that shoulder injury. We predicted, both of us were saying we thought he was going to lose to Gabriel Kidd when they competed just before Christmas, or in when was it, November, December. We also thought that he was going to lose to John Bad Bones Klinger. It refused to lose during that match. We both thought it was over on a number of occasions. And every single time we underestimate Rampage, he comes back and proves why he has been the heart and soul of Defiant Wrestling since its inception back in 2016. And so now that he has earned that world title and held on to it for several months, I'm increasingly of the opinion that I just do not think he will allow any force on this planet to separate him from that championship. That's my prediction. Very quickly, we're nearly out of time, but what is your prediction for 2019?
My main prediction for 2019 is I firmly believe this will come true, because I don't think there's anything on the planet that can stop this man, and that's, I think Gabriel Kidd is going to capture championship gold again in Defiant Wrestling in 2019, and not only because of who Gabriel Kidd is and the young bull and the fire that he brings to the ring with him, and frankly the hatred that he started bringing to the ring with him, but look at who he has by his side. One of the most dangerous individuals walking the earth today in Rory Coyle. A man who's thrown about all sorts of promises here in Defiant Wrestling. He's due to premiere the Yard next week as well. So something about that man scares me, Dave. And you might have noticed as well how quiet I get when Coyle's around. And sometimes I get quiet when Gabriel Kidd's around too. But that's admiration more than anything.
Well, first of all, God help us if you're right about Gabriel Kidd. But you've been talking about this debut of the Yard, this thing that he's saying he's going to premiere, this video nasty he's going to premiere on Loaded this Sunday, as if it's going to be some masterpiece of cinematic genius, you know. Whereas I look at it, the way I look at, you know, this thing that Rory Coyle says he's going to show us all on Sunday is like, imagine when you've got one of the, you know, when you're like in a city centre and there's some guy like who's looking kind of scruffy and dangerous and shouting aggressively at passers-by. You know, that kind of guy, right? And then if that kind of guy said to you, oh, I'm going to perform an opera in a minute and it's going to be genius, would you think, oh, this is going to be great? Or would you think this is the ramblings of a madman?
I would say get the hell out. I would actually get my bodyguards to remove that person from the premises.
Right, exactly. So, well, first of all, you don't have bodyguards, but putting that aside, right? And so that's how I feel about this. Like this idea that we're going to get some wonderful, deep insight into what Rory Coyle's actions have been over the past few months because of this Yard thing he's going to premiere on Loaded this Sunday. I think it's nonsense. I think he's just a disturbed mind. Whatever this thing is, it's probably going to be just, you know, several minutes of nonsense recorded on some camcorder from the 1980s. So I don't get your hopes up that it's going to somehow explain his mindset. I don't see. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't see. I just think he's just a very warped individual, and you're not going to get sense from someone who is mad.
You're not going to get any arguments from me that Rory Coyle is warped. I mean, when you look into his eyes and you hear him say things like Joe Hendry is a liar, Primate is, you know, he duped us all, Dave. He fooled everyone with the Primate thing. You know, Primate brought Rory Coyle into Defiant Wrestling and all seemed rosy in the garden. You know, it looked like Primate had some backup in his war against Gabriel Kidd, blah, 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 blah. It wasn't the case. Coyle was playing everyone. You, me, Primate, even Gabriel Kidd. He was playing everyone. And this is why I say, when I talk about Gabriel Kidd, that you have to, as much as Rory Coyle is your friend now, you have to be looking over your shoulder at all times, because Lord only knows what this man is capable of. You know, he considers himself some kind of filmmaker. He considers himself a poet of sorts. You know, he likes the sound of his own voice. He certainly likes getting into the heads of others. There is no one, in my mind, ironically, more dangerous than Rory Coyle in Defiant Wrestling right now. No one. And when you think about this Yard premiere, and I'm talking about it as some kind of masterpiece, I'm talking out of fear, to be honest with you, because Lord only knows what this guy has up his sleeve. We're about to find out.
Well, another thing we're about to find out is just how deep that friendship does go between Rory Coyle and Gabriel Kidd, because as we now know, they are going to be a tag team on February the 9th at Unstoppable. They're going to team against another slightly odd couple of Primate and Joe Hendry. Primate saving Hendry this past week in our main event of Loaded to make it, I guess, to return the favour from what happened before Christmas. So Primate and Hendry against Coyle and Kidd, tag team action at Unstoppable. Speaking of tag team action, by the way, we also know that Aussie Open, our tag team champions, are going to defend the tag titles at Unstoppable against CCK. And in the women's division, we know that the now former women's champion, Bea Priestley, is going to go one-on-one with someone who has been antagonizing her for a long, long time, Lana Austin. So those 3 matches already announced for Unstoppable on February the 9th. If you want to join us in Manchester on February 9th for that big show. You can be there in person. There are tickets still available at wearedefiant.com/tickets. Or if you want to watch live on demand, you can join us at access.wearedefiant.com. And if you are a new customer, you get a 30-day free trial. So do bear that in mind. We're out of time. Before we go, I'm sure you want to plug some kind of social media for yourself. Go on.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter. Please don't ever think about following me home. Otherwise, certainly if you're going to steal my furniture, again, if you're listening, you little punks, and you think that you can get away with stealing James R. Kennedy's furniture, well, you were right. You did get away with it, but you won't get away with it twice. So, if you want to drop me a DM and apologise at some point, like a decent member of society would, then you can get me on Twitter at TopClassKennedy.
All right, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dave Bradshaw. As we said throughout the show, you can join the conversation about everything we've been talking today by tweeting Defiant at DefiantRes or using the hashtag #WeAreDefiant. Loaded is back free on YouTube on the Defiant YouTube channel Sunday, 8 o'clock UK time, including, of course, that big main event, the homecoming of PAC against the product David Starr. It is going to be unbelievable. We will be back next week with another episode of the ReLoaded podcast. In the meantime, for James R. Kennedy, this is Dave Bradshaw saying thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.